Alstroemerias, also called the Peruvian lily, flower for an amazingly long time in a sort of northern hemisphere, southern hemisphere garden that might equate to a zone 9 like southeast England where I am. Alstroemerias will carry on flowering from late spring until the first frosts. And if you've got a greenhouse or a conservatory, alstroemerias in pots may even flower all year round. And they're incredibly easy to grow, but there are just one or two things that you need to know about them. It's Alexandra here from the Middlesized Garden YouTube channel and blog. So I visited Crosslands farm in West Sussex, Britain's leading growers of alstroemerias to florists, to ask fourth generation alstroemeria grower Ben Cross about his tips for growing alstroemerias in your garden.
Hi guys, my name's Ben Cross, a fourth generation grower here at Crosslands Flower Nursery in Warburton near Arundel, West Sussex, and we specialise in growing the British alstroemeria. We have a full colour range all year round, plethora of colours, a smorgasbord of varieties, and we're one of the last cut flower growers of a large scale left in the UK. I also head up the British Flowers Rock campaign, which I've been doing since 2014. Over 90% of cut flowers are now imported, so it's just raising awareness about where your flowers come from and to support local and to support growers like me.
Although they're called the Peruvian lily because they come from the Andes and their flower does look a bit like a lily, they're not a lily, which means of course they're not poisonous to cats or dogs. And they are the only one of the flowers that look like lilies that will cut and come again, which means that actually if you keep picking them either when the flowers have gone over or if you keep picking them for vases, then you will actually get flowers going on and on and on. And they are so easy to grow.
They flower all year round. They can go up to frosts about -6, -7. Remember, they are a protected ornamental, so if you've got a conservatory or somewhere sheltered, that you'll get more sort of length on the stem, whereas if you put them in your garden and there's a sea breeze hitting it, they're going to grow obviously short. Tends to be the taller varieties are the more reddy, orangey colour, because that's the easiest DNA to get into the bud, and the prettier, more vibrant sort of colours tend to be the dwarf alstroemeria, so they're the ones that are going to grow short anyway. So if you want the really tall ones, be prepared that they're going to be an orangey reddy colour, and if you want prettier colours, you've got to be looking at like the dwarf alstroemeria, which again you can get from Homebase, B&Q, all of those things. So other people are available. If you have got quite an open garden where you get a lot of high winds, try and put them in a sheltered spot. They don't like sort of direct sunlight, so somewhere that's sort of sunny and shady. They do get on fine in direct sunlight, but in the heat of the summer, they go a bit like me. They want to chill out, go dormant, go to the beach, have an ice cream. So the roots, they go dormant and don't produce as much flower in the summer. So if you can keep them in a cool environment in the summer, you'll get more height growth and flowering through the summer. But a lot of gardens around here, you see the tall ones either at the back or middle of borders and in sort of random clumps. They look quite cool like that. And then the dwarf ones, again, you can put them in pots. If you've got a little courtyard garden or something like that, you can put them there. So, but they go well with anything around them.
Is there anything special about planting an alstroemeria?
So 9cm pot. Here's this bad boy here. I think this is a red variety of alstroemeria. They come in these 9cm pots. What you're looking for before you plant, so you might buy a plant at a garden show or get one sent online. You don't want to plant it unless you've got all of this beautiful white root established already in the pot. So if you just empty the pot out and you've only got a few bits of root, leave it in the pot until it becomes established in the pot before you plant it. But yeah, she's ready to go in the ground. We plant here, this is being filmed in August, we're in August. You might be thinking, why don't we put these in the ground before spring? Well, if we put these in the ground in February, beginning of March, they're going to grow too rapidly in the soil. We come to pick a stem and the whole root comes out of the ground because the root hasn't had time to establish and mature in the ground. Whereas if we put these guys in the ground now, end of August, we've got all of this autumn, all of this winter. So next spring, when we start harvesting thousands of stems off these beds a week, we're not pulling up loads of roots because the roots have established and really mature over the winter and the autumn we're about to have. So yeah, let's get ready to plant. Okay, so we're going to put this bad boy in the soil. You can see here, I don't know if you can see yellow bits of string either side of our this is our low level irrigation, and these are Grandad's bit of string that he's drawn little black marks on. So every black mark, that is how we plant them. But looking at this, you're talking about 30, 40 centimetres apart. And these guys, they just want to go wrist deep into the ground. I mean, we're busy here. We're planting hundreds of plants. So it's literally wrist deep in the ground. Make sure it touches the bottom of the soil. Just cover it up. Beautiful. Easy as that. If it's looking a little bit dry, you can water the plant you've just put in like we've done here. We've just damped them down today. And that's it. And alstroemeria, it's very, very sustainable. We only replant less than 5% of our crop. So here at Crosslands, we've got hundreds and hundreds of beds, but we're only replanting at about 6 beds this year. So if it's a good variety, you guys look after it, it'll be in the ground for another 20, 30 years.
How do you deadhead alstroemerias? I understand it's not the same as other plants.
So it's not deadheading, I call it thinning. So we thin out the bed. So everything that's never going to flower, so there's no sign of any buds forming or anything, it's just a spear of foliage, you want to take that out, pull it out of the ground, for us, get it out of the greenhouse to allow light and nutrients and water back into the soil to allow a better chance of stems coming up with flower on it. So it's not deadheading, but we call it thinning.
So how would we pick alstroemerias?
These stems, you can see nice big fat purple buds. So these are all at the correct bud stage. And literally we do millions of stems here at Crosslands hand picked. So I'm going to go pretty quick. But when you're picking, you want to keep the heads together, obviously. And it's as easy as that. There we go. So as you can see, I'm keeping all of the heads together so they're not getting broken or damaged. One more there. And obviously when you get them into your house, yes, you'll need to cut them a little bit shorter. And junior school tip, when you arrange these in your home, you want to basically strip all the leaves off, because that's wasting energy. If you strip the leaves off, you're putting energy back up here into the flower bud, and you're going to get more days out of your flowers. Again, it's summer now, so change your water every 2 or 3 days. When you change your water in your vessels and your vases, snip a little bit of the end off, because as these stems are in your vase, bacteria builds up. You think, oh, I'm putting in loads of fresh water, that's great. Well, it can't suck up the fresh water because all this bacteria is built up around it. So just take off a little bit of the end of the stem off when you put fresh water, sucks up that fresh water. You've taken all the leaf off of it, and they should chug on for 2 or 3 weeks.
Why do you pick the stems of alstroemerias, which I think many of us would call pulling the stems out, rather than cutting them?
Okay, so we've just hand-picked this one. Why do we pick it and not cut it? Well, alstroemeria, it's not what I call a one-hit wonder. It's not a seed that you put in the ground, it grows, you cut it, next year you've got to put another seed in, so on and so on. All of these beds here, the flower beds, they're a maze of rhizomes, tubers and root systems, and you want to treat the surface of those roots like your carpet in your lounge at home. You want to hoover it up and keep it nice and tidy. So if we'd had cut this stem off the root, we'd have been left with this bit of the stem in the ground. That would rot, go brown, degrade, go back onto the root. You'll get things like phytophthora and fungal disease building up on the root. And if you've got that bit of the stem left on the root, you're inhibiting and stopping further growth. Whereas we pick the alstroemeria, we're tidying up the surface of that rhizome under the soil and stimulating more growth. So that's why you pick it and don't cut it, just like picking rhubarb, basically.
Would you propagate alstroemerias, or would you grow them from seed?
Alstroemeria, it's got different stages of bud. So we've obviously got our primary bud, our secondary bud, and in there a tertiary bud, all on the same frond, if you like. So if you let that in the soil, leave it in the bed, let it bloom so that the primary, secondary and tertiary bud are all fully bloomed, let it go dry, and you can then hear the seeds rattling, and then put them in the freezer, let them go dormant, and you can try and grow it from seed. But the best thing to do is just get the roots and the plants from garden centres, give it a couple of years, and then you can dig them up once they've been matured for a couple of years, take off all the growth, and the rhizomes and roots will naturally divide, and then you've got more plants. So you can have a go at freezing the seeds and trying that, but it wasn't successful for me. But the easiest thing to do is just buy a good plant, and then you can just multiply it, and away you go. Yeah.
And do alstroemerias grow in the shade?
Yes, they will. Not fantastically if they're in the shade all the time. But as I say, they like sort of sunny, shady areas, just like you can see behind me really. This sort of environment is going to be perfect for them. So.
Do alstroemerias grow in pots?
Perfect, especially you don't want to grow the tall ones in pots because they'll fall over and be quite ungainly, and if you are growing the tall ones even in borders, you might need to, you can see here behind me we've got our netting and our uprights to keep them all tucked and trained into the bed. But if you're growing the dwarf ones because you want the prettier pinks and cerises and different colours and the purples and the whites, perfect for growing in pots because they're only going to grow short anyway, and then you can move it into the conservatory or greenhouse in the winter and move it out into your garden in April when you can be sure there aren't going to be any frosts.
So do you need any special compost if you're planting alstroemerias in pots?
Just multi-purpose compost. You can put a bit of drainage, you know, stones at the bottom. Remember, British alstroemeria especially is a dry crop. So you don't want to be overwatering it. It doesn't like a lot of water because it's a rhizome root and a tuber system, and if you overwater it, that will rot and get fungal diseases and things like that. So water little and often.
What's the most common cause of an alstroemeria dying?
What I've just said. Phytophthora, fungal diseases, people overwatering it. It's obviously alstroemeria is its Latin name, but the common name is Peruvian lily, lily of the Inca. The seed originates from Peru, loves growing halfway up the Andes in Chile and Peru. That's where the seed originates from. So it's a dry crop, likes the cool Mediterranean sort of vibes going on. So yeah, just don't overwater it. Back in the 60s and 70s, when there was a lot more growers of a large scale growing alstroemeria, they would shut the vents, loads of water, big humidity, and the crop would just die, get fungal diseases. So that is number one. Yeah.
Alstroemerias can be invasive. If they do really, really well, then you may find they are a bit too much of a good thing, which is why Ben has recommended really you grow them in pots. But Frances Moskowitz, whose garden I featured in How to Make a Flower Border Look Amazing, and I'll put a link in the description below to that video, says she wouldn't be without alstroemerias in her garden. They just pop up in spring, and she often has to pull several handfuls out because she knows more will come along. But she really finds them a very good presence in the garden, and she says you can either plant them in clumps or let them pop up between flowers. There are several other flowers that will give you really good, vibrant colour in your garden and which will last a long time, such as dahlias and hydrangeas. And I've got a playlist called Flower Colour, which will give you 4 or 5 brilliant flowers and how to grow them. And I'll put that link in the description below, and it's also at the end of this video. And if you'd like more tips, ideas and inspiration for your middle-sized garden, then do subscribe to the Middlesized Garden on YouTube. And thank you for watching. Goodbye.